morning. We have made it to the Gallipoli Peninsula on Anzac Day.
Yeah, it's pretty special being here on the 25th of April. It's going to be a pretty special day. We've just got here to Anzac Cove. Now Anzac Cove is only about 600 meters long, and it's just here, if you can sort of see it. And on the 25th of April 1915, 106 years ago, 15,000 men, the Anzacs from Australia and New Zealand predominantly, came in. There was 3 landing spots. Anzac Cove was one of them. There were 2 others. They started descending from 4:30 a.m. onwards until the end of the night. This is the scene they were greeted with.
So right behind me is called the First Touch. It's where the Anzacs first landed.
This is the path they walked up. They tried to capture the high ground, which was the main objective when the first 15,000 Anzacs landed. You'll just see in a second how high they had to climb, and they almost got to the top by 11 a.m. However, the Turks just beat them to the top, and that is as high as the Anzacs would get here, which is just up there. So this quote behind me is probably my favourite Anzac quote. I will read it out to you just now, but just before I do, Mehmet was a basic Turkish name, and Johnny's was essentially a basic British name or British Australian name, just so this quote makes sense to you. So it reads, "Those heroes that shed their blood and lost their lives, you are now lying in the soil of a friendly country. Therefore, rest in peace. There is no difference between the Johnnies and the Mehmets to us where they lie side by side, here in this country of ours. You, the mothers who sent their sons from faraway countries, wipe away your tears. Your sons are now lying in our bosom and are in peace. After having lost their lives on this land, they have become our sons as well." And that was by Ataturk, who was a field general during World War I, and at the end of the Ottoman Empire he became Turkey's first president, and he was Turkey's first president for just over a decade. I think he passed away in the early 1930s, and that was actually at the Dolmabahce Palace, which we just visited in Besiktas. So it's a pretty touching quote, and yeah, it's just so special to be here on Anzac Day. On a normal Anzac Day, all of this is just standing room only. Like, it is absolutely packed, and they have a big screen over here, and that's if you get there early. And over here is if you come late, you're all the way back there. Now up here, so this is the North Beach, which is another one of the locations the Anzacs landed at. And they were stationed at Egypt for a while before they came here, and hopefully you'll get a good look of it. It's quite funny. They would call this the Sphinx because they were obviously stationed in Egypt, and they saw the Sphinx and they thought that's what it looks like, and it sort of does. And our tour guide was actually telling us, or the locals here still refer to it as the Sphinx, which is pretty cool, which is a little fun fact I learnt today.
So the story with this statue behind me is that is a Turkish soldier carrying an Australian soldier. The Australian one was injured and yelling out for help, and the Turkish one waved his white flag and ran over, picked him up and put him to safety, and then ran back, and they all continued fighting. So it's a pretty special statue here.
So where I'm standing right now is pretty much a memorial for all the soldiers. This is everyone's name written here, and these were men that were not found. There's a lot of soldiers that were buried at sea. So this is where the Battle of Lone Pine took place. As you can see from all the headstones and memorial plaques, that there was a lot of casualties here, Australian casualties. And pretty much the saddest thing about all of these headstones is that they say, believed to be buried in the cemetery. So that doesn't mean they would necessarily, that they took their final breath here, their final steps. It's just pure speculation that they might have been buried here. Their families wouldn't know where their final resting place is, and even to this day we don't know where a lot of them ended up. Alright, so it became a bit of a stalemate, and the Turks and the Anzacs were only metres away each other's trenches. So what they started to do, it's just over there, was they started digging deep, trying to get underneath and at the enemy that way. Alright, so this is pretty special. This might be the most special thing I've done. This is some of the Anzacs trenches that they dug. Obviously they've caved in a little bit over the last 100 years. I didn't really know that these were still here, to be honest. Yeah, this is a very special day. So if you're watching this, especially if you're Australian or New Zealand, or to be honest anyone, I would highly recommend coming along and checking out Gallipoli at some stage.
So behind me, that statue, that is the oldest Turkish soldier. He died in 1994. He was 110 years old, and they have a nice statue of him.
So on the Gallipoli Peninsula, there's 31 cemeteries for all the Anzacs and British soldiers that died. Alright, so for those of you that are interested in coming along to Gallipoli, maybe next year hopefully, or at some point in your lives, I personally would recommend Crowded House Tours, which is who we've gone with. That's kind of funny because Crowded House is a Australian rock band which is relatively big. Haven't heard that name in a few years. I think their lead singer was from New Zealand too, which is pretty cool. I don't know if that's where they got the name from, but for information, it was €95 each, which includes a 5-hour bus trip to Gallipoli from Istanbul and the 5-hour trip back tonight. Included a guide, lunch, which was pretty nice. So it's pretty good value for money, especially what you get to see. We actually had trouble with a few tour groups because they cancelled last minute. No one rocked up for the tour, no one booked. So luckily on Friday at about 4 p.m, as in less than 48 hours ago, this was literally the only tour that was running. You can be sure that regardless of what next April is like, they will be running. Great tour guide, everything's been pretty easy, and yeah, Crowded House Tours is the name.
So behind me up there is where the New Zealanders captured the high ground and took over from Turkey's land. They had it for about 2 days and 2 nights before they couldn't get any more help from the Australian and the British because they were preoccupied. So the Turkish were able to get more reinforcements and take back the land and push them back. So that's just up there.
Thanks for watching, guys, and we will see you in the next episode.